live in interesting times. For the headlines. Newly appointed Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin asserted judicial independence as he takes the helm of the judiciary. Martial law takes effect in border regions of Ukraine as mounting tensions over Russia's seizure of Ukrainian ships see U.S. President Trump threaten to cancel talks with Vladimir Putin. A crashed Lion Air jet should have been grounded over a recurrent technical problem before its final journey last month, according to Indonesian authorities, as details from the new jet's flight data recorder suggest that pilots struggled to control its anti-stalling system. In New York, Iglesia Ni Cristo musicians from all over the world gathered to perform as part of the Oratorio. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. Newly appointed Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin asserted judicial independence as he took the helm of the judiciary. Bersamin took his oath before Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio at the Supreme Court. Bersamin replaces Teresita Leonardo de Castro, who retired as Chief Justice after reaching the mandatory age of retirement in October. Bersamin will reach the mandatory age of retirement of 70 in October of 2019. Now he asserted judicial independence as he takes the helm of the judiciary, saying he has always given analytical attention and deep study when voting or rendering judgment. Malacanang confirmed that President Duterte has appointed Justice Lucas Bersamin as the 25th Chief Justice.
Many will probably not believe that I do not know the President. Honestly, I do not know him at all. He does not know me also. The only time that I had ever been personally close to the President, meaning within a few feet away from each other, was when I attended the oath-taking ceremony in Malacanang of Chief Justice De Castro. That was the only time so far that I met the President and saw him very at close range. And it was even for a very brief moment that happened, because the President was had a very busy schedule on that evening when we were there. And the President the President and I never even had any conversation. Let me assure you that I have always given these matters analytical attention and deep study. So when the time comes for me to give a vote, if it is a collegial court, or to render a judgment when I was still in the trial court, I always did my best to come up with a fair and legal and valid ruling. Now, maybe your concept, as far as that question goes, your concept of judicial independence is that government should lose the case. I hate to disappoint you. The government is often better in the arguments than the other side.
President Duterte handpicked Bersamin from a judicial and bar council short list that included acting Chief Justice Antonio Carpio and Associate Justices Diosdado Peralta, Estela Perlas Bernabe, and Andres Reyes Jr. Although Carpio, 68, is the most senior magistrate in the High Court, the 69-year-old Bersamin is the most senior Supreme Court justice in the judiciary, starting out as a judge of the Quezon City Regional Trial Court Branch 96 in November of 1986. Bersamin was a recipient of the Chief Justice Jose Abad Santos Award as Outstanding RTC Judge in 2002 and was acknowledged by the Chief Justice Fred Ruzi Castro Memorabilia Commission for having the best decision in civil law and the best decision in criminal law from among all RTC judges in 1999. Now, prior to his appointment at the Supreme Court by then President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, Bersamin was a Court of Appeals Associate Justice since 2003.
Number balloon to at least 5,000 pesos up.
In other news, the Commission on Appointments confirmed the ad interim appointment of Teodoro Tedilboy Locsin Jr. as Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary. President Duterte appointed Locsin as the country's top diplomat in October after former DFA Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano resigned to run as Taguig representative. Before being named DFA chief, Locsin served as the Philippines permanent representative to the UN. Senator Panfilo Lacson, the chair of the CA's Committee on Foreign Affairs, endorsed his confirmation to the powerful body, saying Locsin possesses all the qualities to be the country's top diplomat. The seasoned lawmaker said Locsin will bring with him his own brand of diplomacy, one that represents the true value of an independent foreign policy enshrined in the Constitution. Lacson's glowing endorsement was seconded by his fellow colleagues in the CA. Senator Grace Poe said Locsin is not just a good choice for the post, but he is the right choice. Meanwhile, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri described Locsin's appointment to the DFA as, quote, one of the best appointments made by President Duterte to date. In other news, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko warned of the threat of a full-scale war and said Russia had sharply increased its military presence on their shared border as tensions escalate between the ex-Soviet neighbors.
Ці танки ще не виведені. Вони залишаються там. І тому я хочу, щоб ніхто не думав, що це забавки або іграшки. Країна знаходиться під загрозою повномасштабної війни з Російською Федерацією.
He spoke after Russian forces seized 3 of Kiev's ships off the coast of Crimea on Sunday and captured 24 Ukrainian sailors, sparking a new diplomatic crisis. On Sunday, 2 Ukrainian gunboats and a tug were sailing into the Kerch Strait, the only route for ships to enter the Sea of Azov from the Black Sea. Russia's FSB border guard force says the flotilla violated Russian territorial waters after the FSB had temporarily closed an area of water to shipping. Now, Ukraine calls it a flagrant violation of international law because the incidents happened in the Black Sea, which is free for shipping, and annexed Crimea belongs to Ukraine. Kiev also cites a 2003 Russian-Ukraine treaty on unimpeded access to the Kerch Strait and Sea of Azov. Ukraine has 2 big ports on the northern shore of the Azov Sea, and a 2003 treaty allows both countries free access to its waters. Now, on Tuesday, a court in Simferopol, the main city in Russian-annexed Crimea, ordered 12 of the sailors to be held in pre-trial detention for 2 months. 3 hospitalized sailors were also formally detained for 2 months. The rest are to appear in court. Now, President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday warned Ukraine against any reckless acts after Kiev declared martial law in response to Moscow's seizure of the Navy vessels. The Ukrainian parliament late on Monday voted in favor of Poroshenko's request for the introduction of martial law in border areas for 30 days. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has said he may cancel a long-awaited summit with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin after a confrontation at sea between Russia and Ukraine led Kiev to warn of the threat of full-scale war. Trump is scheduled to meet Putin at the G20 summit in Buenos Aires at the end of this week, but warned it would depend on the results of a report being prepared by his national security advisors about Russia's seizure of 3 Ukrainian ships. In an interview with the Washington Post, the U.S. President said he would be receiving a full report from his national security team on Russia's recent actions in eastern Ukraine and the Black Sea. He said he would decide on a course afterwards. In other news, a Lion Air jet that crashed last month should have been grounded over a recurrent technical problem and never permitted to make the fatal flight. And that is according to Indonesian authorities in a report that took aim at the carrier's poor safety culture. The Boeing 737 MAX vanished from radar about 30 minutes after taking off from Jakarta on October 29, slamming into the Java Sea moments after it had asked to return to the capital. The report confirmed that initial findings, saying the plane's data recorder detected an issue with the AOA. An AOA sensor provides data about the angle at which air is passing over the wings and tells pilots how much lift a plane is getting. The information can be critical in preventing an aircraft from stalling. Now, it also said the plane's stick shaker, the steering wheel-like handles in front of the pilots that vibrates to warn of a system malfunction, was activated and continued for most of the flight. The preliminary crash report from Indonesia's Transport Safety Agency didn't pinpoint a definitive cause of the accident, which killed all of the 189 people aboard, with a final report not likely to be filed until next year. Now, the black box data showed the plane also had an airspeed indicator issue on multiple earlier flights. The transport agency said Lion Air must take steps to improve the safety culture and ensure all the operation documents are properly filled and documented. The APA, a U.S. airline pilots union, said that carriers and pilots had not been informed of by Boeing of certain changes in the aircraft control system installed on the new MAX variants of the 737. Several relatives of the crash victims have already filed lawsuits against Boeing, including the family of a young doctor who was to have married his high school sweetheart this month. Lion Air flight JT610 plunged into the sea less than half an hour after taking off on a routine flight to Pangkal Pinang City, and authorities have called off the grim task of identifying the victims of the crash, with 125 passengers officially recognized after testing on human remains that filled some 200 body bags.
Di penerbangan Denpasar, Jakarta, pesawat mengalami gangguan pada saat terbang. Pilot memutuskan untuk terus sampai Jakarta. Inilah dasar yang keluar rekomendasi kita yang pertama tadi, Pak, kepada Lion Air untuk pilotnya untuk menentukan terus atau kembali. Menurut pandangan kami, yang terjadi itu pesawat sudah tidak layak terbang. Menurut pendapat kami, seharusnya penerbangan itu tidak dilanjutkan. But what happened in the accident flight, why the pilot did the different action, these the things that we need to find. That's why we really wanted to have the cockpit voice recorder. We need to know what was the pilot discussion during the flight.
The U.S. and China have re-engaged in trade talks ahead of a meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in Argentina this week. Economic advisor Larry Kudlow told the White House press conference that the president said there is a good possibility that a deal can be made and that the president is open to it. The issue is the biggest looming over Trump's visit to Argentina, with the two economic giants locked in exchange of punitive tariffs and Washington effectively threatening to target all remaining Chinese imports, including Apple products made in China. Despite Kudlow's repeated insistence that Trump sees cause for optimism, he also underlined the tough conditions that the administration wants to impose on Beijing.
I want to just mention what President told us a short while ago, and that is, in his view, there's a good possibility that a deal can be made, and that he is open to that. He is open to that. But having said that, some caveats, as always. Certain conditions have to be met with respect to fairness and reciprocity, as we've said many times. For example, issues of intellectual property theft must be solved. Forced technology transfers must be solved. Significant tariffs and non-tariff barriers must be solved. Issues of ownership have to be solved. The President will probably reiterate his view. We want a world, ideally, of zero tariffs, zero non-tariff barriers, and zero subsidy. However, again, to repeat, the President said there's a good possibility that we can make a deal, and he is open to it. But on the other hand, if these conditions I mentioned a few moments ago are not met, not dealt with, you know, the President has said, look, he's perfectly happy to stand on his tariff policies, which 10% last $200 billion, scheduled to go to 25%. That's not a certainty, but that's the schedule. And he has said, as recently as yesterday, the day before, if need be, if things don't work out in this U.S.-China summit meeting, he will invoke another 267 some odd billion dollars in tariffs.
Now, Trump has imposed steep punitive tariffs on about half of the Chinese goods imported into the U.S. market each year and has threatened to target the remaining $267 billion in goods as well, which would hit Apple iPhones and laptops produced in China.
He is open to that. He is open to that.
Theresa May has dismissed President Trump's assessment of her Brexit deal. She insisted the UK will be able to strike new trade agreements outside of the EU. Now, President Trump suggested May had made a mistake by signing an agreement that might impede a future trade deal between London and Washington. Take a listen.
Sounds like a great deal for the EU, and I think we have to do this. I think we have to take a look at seriously whether or not the UK is allowed to trade, because, you know, right now, if you look at the deal, they may not be able to trade with us, and that would be a good thing. I don't think they meant that. I don't think that the Prime Minister meant that, and hopefully she'll be able to do something about that. But right now, as the deal stands, they may not be able to trade with the U.S., and I don't think they want that at all. That would be a very big negative for the deal.
If you look at the political declaration, which sets out the future framework for our relationship with the European Union, it clearly identifies that we will have an independent trade policy, and we will be able to do trade deals, to negotiate trade deals with countries around the rest of the world. And as regards the United States, we've already been talking to them about the sort of agreement that we could have in the future. We've got a working group set up, which is working very well, has met several times, continuing to work with the US on this.
Now, her endeavor suffered a major blow when President Trump claimed the Brexit agreement sounds like a great deal for the EU. May's chances of getting her deal through Parliament appear slim, with it estimated she could be more than 60 votes short of winning the House of Commons support. Thousands of people were being evacuated from their homes in northeast Australia late Wednesday as bushfires raged across Queensland state amid a scorching heat wave. Some 8,000 people were told to leave the town of Gracemere, south of the Central Coast area of Rockhampton, as a fast-moving blaze threatened homes. The Bureau of Meteorology declared a catastrophic fire danger, the highest possible risk rating in some central areas, while firefighters battled to contain more than 130 blazes across the state. The Bureau of Meteorology said scorching temperatures had broken records across Queensland, with the state capital Brisbane reaching 37.9 degrees Celsius or 100.2 degrees Fahrenheit. At least 34 schools were closed. Authorities earlier in the day said the number of homes destroyed was likely in single digits, but it was too early to confirm. Other states were sending backup firefighters to Queensland. And staying in Australia, in Sydney, hundreds of Australians have called for emergency assistance after storms lashed Sydney and nearby regions, causing floods, power cuts, and flight delays. Severe thunderstorms and heavy rainfall lashed Australia's largest city. The local Bureau of Meteorology reported more than 106 millimeters of rain fell in some places within a few hours. The agency said it was the region's wettest November day since 1984. It also said a month's worth of rain fell on Sydney on Wednesday morning. Electricity providers reported that at least 6,600 people were left without power. Authorities said 2 police officers were injured in Sydney after being hit by a falling tree while trying to help motorists. The city's airport, the country's busiest, said it canceled at least 20 flights after closing 2 of its 3 runways. Several stranded motorists were plucked from rising flood waters. 1 person was killed in a car crash. An explosion and fire near a chemical factory left at least 22 people dead and 22 others injured on Wednesday in a northern China city that will host the 2022 Winter Olympics. The charred and smoking remains of trucks and cars were scattered on a road as firefighters worked at the scene, according to images posted by state media on social media. The incident near Hebei Shenghua Chemical Company in Zhangjiakou, a city some 200 kilometers northwest of Beijing, burned 38 trucks, 12 cars, according to the local propaganda department. The explosion occurred at the entrance of the factory when a vehicle transporting dangerous chemicals blew up, igniting surrounding vehicles. And that is according to the paper, news outlet which cited a staffer at the Zhangjiakou City Safety Production Supervision Administration. Some Olympic skiing and snowboarding events will be held on the outskirts of that area during the 2022 Winter Games, which Beijing is organizing. The 2 Koreas will begin a joint survey on reconnecting railways across their border this week, according to Seoul, the latest move in a rapid reconciliation drive between the 2 countries. Linking up the railway systems was one of the agreements made earlier this year between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and the South's President Moon Jae-in. The 2 countries, technically still at war after the 1950-53 Korean War ended with a ceasefire instead of a peace treaty. And they have said they aim to hold a groundbreaking ceremony before the end of the year. The Unification Ministry said a South Korean train will depart from Seoul early Friday and cross the border on an 18-day joint mission to examine the North's rail system. It will be the first time since 2007 a train from the South will enter North Korea. The train will have 28 South Korean passengers on board, mostly officials and experts, as well as 55,000 liters of fuel and other unspecified materials. Meanwhile, South Korea successfully conducted a rocket engine test launch, paving the way for the development of its own space launch vehicle. The rocket, weighing 52 tons and measuring 25.8 meters or 84.6 feet long, was fitted with a single engine with 75-ton thrust, according to the Korea Aerospace Research Institute. The engine, designed and developed as part of a $1.8 billion project, will be used to propel the country's first indigenous 3-stage launch vehicle, the Korea Space Launch Vehicle 2. Engine combustion lasted for 151 seconds, surpassing an initial goal of 140 seconds, bringing the vehicle to an altitude of 75 kilometers before the engine stopped. But it continued flying due to inertia, reaching a suborbital altitude of 209 kilometers, 319 seconds after liftoff. Wednesday's test was deemed successful as the engine combustion was maintained for more than 140 seconds during the test launch. The KSLV-2 rocket, which will be South Korea's first space vehicle, wholly designed and built by itself, will be used to place satellites into the Earth's orbit and for other commercial applications. And we'll be back with the business news with Cesar Vallejos. Stay tuned.
business news, this is Cesar Vallejos. Local carriers Philippine Airlines, Cebu Pacific, and AirAsia have announced they will start flight operations at the Bohol Panglao International Airport on Wednesday, November 28. With a budget of 8.9 billion pesos, construction of the BPIA started on June 2015 on a traffic land area of 22 hectares. It is projected to accommodate more than 2 million local and foreign tourists and passengers annually compared to the 800,000 capacity of the Tagbilaran Airport. CAAP spokesperson Eric Apolonio said that the new airport will replace the Tagbilaran Airport. According to the Department of Transportation, the new airport features energy-saving and clean technology such as green and sustainable structures, solar panels, motion sensor lighting, and natural ventilations.
This modern airport will serve local and international tourists who would like to experience the beauty of Panglao. It will also address the problem of our growing traffic congestion and accelerate economic activities in the region. Be assured of this government's full support as you make Bohol more accessible to the world through this new airport. Kagaganda pa ng mga stewardess nasaan dyan. Kung na ba aeroplano ninyo mo larga kayo mo sakay ko. Indeed, now is the perfect time to see the wonders of Bohol. As we formally open the doors of BPIA, I urge you to demonstrate solidarity in our shared task of building a stronger and more robust society for all. Daghang salamat sa inyong tanan.
Sellers and buyers will soon engage in a single platform where they could transact business from supply chain management to procurement and logistics. Procurement and Supply Institute of Asia Chairman of the Board and CEO Charlie Villaseñor said that the rise of a single electronic marketplace is one of the technology disruptions that will impact on the industry. This could be the next biggest story in the horizon next year because more companies are coming to us and they're already being part of the e-marketplace, he said. On the sidelines of the recently concluded Pasha World 2018 Supply Chain, Procurement and Logistics Educational and Networking Conference held at the Marriott Hotel, Villaseñor said that the e-commerce platform will differentiate the way B2B transactions with SMEs and large companies and how they conduct business with buyers. Villaseñor noted that we are living in a strange economy right now and many companies could not adopt into digitalization. They don't have the resources, they don't have the capital, they don't have the know-how to do it. So they will actually rely on available electronic marketplaces and providers who has the know-how and the capacity to actually deliver the platform, he explained. According to Villaseñor, the number of the companies that are dropping out off the list is so fast now. The smaller players are enabled and the player who has the highest value is going to disrupt. He said that small and medium enterprises can work even with competitors because the marketplace or the electronic marketplace is like a portal. So if there are more users on the portal, everybody wins. They are able to reduce their costs, they are able to make efficient, and everybody survives. What we are doing is we are elevating the value proposition to the world. We cannot just remain as call centers as we are going to impact where it matters most to the business. And what matters more to their business is that companies are going to compete on their supply chain, not only on the product and services that they sell, he said. So this is one of the strategic approach to elevate their supply chains efficiently by making sure they know where to offshore, outsource, out-task, and get augmentation help to providers. Villaseñor believes that the Philippines has something to offer which is not easily duplicable by countries like China and India at this time. He also said that what is more important is training people in many industries, whatever size of an organization they have, to be knowledgeable on supply chain, because companies are not going to compete only on the product that they produce. Companies are going to compete on how they execute their supply chain, procurement, and logistics. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says President Donald Trump believes there is a good possibility that the U.S. and China can reach a trade agreement. The leaders are preparing for a bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the upcoming G20 summit.
If China will come to the table, or in this case the dinner table, with some new ideas and some new attitudes and some new cooperation, as the President said, there's a good possibility they can make a deal. He's open to it. So nothing is written in cement or stone. If need be, if things don't work out in this U.S.-China summit meeting, he will invoke another $267 some odd billion in tariffs. That may not be the first choice. I'm just saying that is his view. If we can't get something done, there is broad-based support for the American position here, which is China should change its practices and come into the community of responsible trading nations. They can do that. Thanks, everybody. If China will come...
Trump's trade war with China has at times roiled stock markets this year amid concerns about broader damage to the U.S. economy. China was the largest U.S. trade partner through September, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The rising trade tensions have been flagged by economists and the International Monetary Fund, among others, as a potential risk to the global economy. German high-end car maker BMW presents a new electric and autonomous car in Los Angeles ahead of the auto show, hoping that the model can take on Tesla in the electric car sector.
This is one of the headlines fighting against Tesla, but we have a couple of cars coming. The i4 will come in 2021 on the market, which is definitely also a very challenging car for Tesla. We will have other cars to come, the Mini BEV electric vehicle. So we will have 5 electric vehicles by 2021 on the market, and we're looking forward to compete with the competition.
Chairman Harald Kruger also reacts to the news that General Motors is closing some plants in North America.
We will announce tomorrow the X7 and the world premiere of the new X7, built in Spartanburg for the world, built in Spartanburg for the American market, which is probably the biggest for the new X7. And this shows that we are creating some more jobs in South Carolina and that we believe in the US market.
BMW is considering a second U.S. manufacturing plant that could produce engines and transmissions. CEO Harald Kruger said on Tuesday, shortly after a report that U.S. President Donald Trump would impose tariffs on imported cars from next week.
What you can see is the China-US relationship is having an impact on our X5 products, for example, exported from South Carolina, Spartanburg, to China. Clear is that we need free trade across the globe because that creates wealth, that creates success, that creates profits for all sides where everyone is benefiting from.
Jack Ma, founder of Chinese tech giant Alibaba, is among the world's richest people, but he has now emerged as a member of another club, China's 89 million strong Communist Party membership. Take a look. That's it for Business News. This is Cesar Vallejos and I'm One with 25. Eagle News International will be back. Keep watching.
Welcome back. Scientists have launched the largest ever attempt to regenerate coral on the endangered Great Barrier Reef by harvesting millions of the creature's eggs and sperm during their annual spawning. Now, the researchers said they plan to grow coral larvae from the harvested eggs and return these to areas of the reef which have been badly damaged by climate-related coral bleaching. The larval restoration project launch was timed to coincide with the annual coral spawn on the reef, which began earlier this week and will last until about 48 to 72 hours. The scientists hope that coral, which have survived bleaching, have a greater tolerance to rising temperatures so that a breeding population produced from this year's spawn will grow into coral better able to survive future bleaching events.
A strong spawning season basically means the reef is alive. Yeah, it's number one. You can't spawn, you can't reproduce, no one has sex when they're dead. So this is a clear indication that the environmental and the ecological processes and functions that keep the system working are functioning well. Yes, we do need to conserve it and look after it, but this is a clear indication that it's not too late for the reef, and the reef itself is actually doing its job and is doing it well. We've just got to be there to help it and make sure nothing else happens to it.
Coral along large swaths of the 2,300-kilometer reef have been killed by rising sea temperatures linked to climate change, leaving behind skeletal remains in a process known as coral bleaching. The northern reaches of the reef suffered an unprecedented 2 successive years of severe bleaching in 2016 and 2017, raising fears it may have suffered irreparable damage. Meanwhile, global warming has outpaced efforts to slow it as the gap between greenhouse gas emissions and levels needed to achieve the Paris Climate Treaty temperature goals continues to widen. Take a look. New York's famed mandarin duck, with its kaleidoscopic orange, brown, blue, and red plumage, stands out among the other ducks in a Central Park pond. This bird, which was first spotted there in October, continues to draw bird watchers. Meanwhile, this famous mandarin duck that has been drawing crowds for months in New York City Central Park has made another mysterious journey that is surprising bird watchers. The duck, a species that normally hails from China and Japan and was unexpectedly spotted in New York in early October, recently has been disappearing for a few days at a time and has worried its adoring fans. But a sighting discovered that the male duck traveled to Bergen County, New Jersey for a few days at a time. Now, the duck caused mass panic among its fans when it disappeared from Central Park, but since then, bird watchers have spotted him not just in North New Jersey, but also other areas west of the park up to the Hudson River. According to the Manhattan Bird Alert account on Twitter, the duck was back home in Central Park safe and sound by Tuesday morning. Now, he has attracted hordes of far-flung tourists and local gawkers since he began giving free performances in Central Park last month. How much longer the mandarin will stay in Manhattan is hard to predict. If the ponds in Central Park freeze, the duck may move to the Hudson River or further south. We'll be back with more news right after this break. Stay tuned.
Sa lahat ng TV shows. Para ugaliin ng pamilya ang responsableng panonood. Teamwork tayo, parents!
Rated G, good for all. Oops, rated PG. Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe, rated SPG, maselan!
Higpitan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCB, rated responsable.
All right, let's get the latest in sports news from Ben Bernaldez. Ben?
U.S. College Sports Camp Philippines brought the men's and women's golf team coaches from U.S. Division I schools, Southern Utah, Arkansas Little Rock, and Seattle University to the Philippines to hold a two-day golf camp for 30 junior golfers. The event will give the participants a college training day experience in a small group setting directly under the U.S. coaches. Each camper will receive in-depth experts instruction on full swing, short game, course management, tournament preparation, mental game, fitness, and instruction. They will also be given an overview on NCAA recruitment. The coaches participating are Southern Utah men's and women's Richard Church, Jake Harrington, golf director for the men's and women's programs at the University of Arkansas Little Rock, and Mark Chardonnay, men's and women's head coach at Seattle University.
Hello Philippines, I'm Jake Harrington, and I'm the director of golf at the University of Arkansas Little Rock. I've had a great time at the inaugural golf camp here in the Philippines. It's been fun to work with boys and girls. And
Mabuhay Philippines had a great time this weekend and really appreciated the opportunity to be part of the first U.S. collegiate camp in the Philippines. All the kids were wonderful, sponsors, parents, and the golf course just fantastic. We had a great time, and the players certainly have a lot of talent. No doubt they have what it takes to play collegiately, and that there's an institution for them. So keep working hard, enjoy the experience, and thank you so much for your hospitality.
Mabuhay Philippines. My name is Richard Church, the head golf coach from Southern Utah University. We had the opportunity to just finish up the first U.S. college golf camp in Manila, Philippines at Southwood Golf and Country Club. What a wonderful experience it was. I was very impressed with the support system that is in place for junior golfers in the Philippines. And Mark Chardonnay, Jake Harrington, and myself were wonderfully treated, and the hospitality was great. The young men and women of the Philippines are very talented in their golf skill level and have a bright future ahead of themselves. We look forward to many, many new experiences and meeting new kids in future years of the U.S. College Golf Camp.
The event is made possibly by U.S. College Camps in cooperation with Golf Globally LLC. The U.S. NCAA coaches thank the Filipino golfers for the success of the inaugural golf camp in the Philippines, and they see a great potential for Filipino young golfers. On its 23rd year, the Alaska Football Cup 2018 held at the Alabang Country Club, where more than 3,800 participants from 260 teams nationwide playing in a 25 smaller football fields have gathered for a football festival weekend. AFC aims to inspire more children to hone and develop their winning habits by way of encouragement to live a healthy and active lifestyle and develop good values with the help of sports. Dayan Guarte, Associate Brand Manager, shared that not only Alaska's Football Cup solidifies family bonding with children who plays football, but it really aims to start these kids very young in their chosen sport so one will excel in the future.
Alaska's role is to really encourage them to play an active lifestyle, and also we give the proper nutrition by encouraging them to drink their milk and just eat healthy. At the same time, we also want to thank the parents for them allowing their kids to play and have fun with this sport.
Former international football player Mr. Tomas Lozano, a Spanish national residing here in the Philippines for the past 40 years, led the growth of the football grassroots.
Filipino kids is the future. And the Filipino kids, when you look at them, it's like the ladies. They don't stop smiling. The kids are all happy. You don't see a sad boy, Filipino. They're all smiling. They're all listening to you as a coach. They're so happy to learn. And that's wonderful to learn. So let's give a little more time, a few more years, and then football will not be stopped anymore. It will grow and grow and grow. It's only we have to provide where are we going. Then the kids will follow.
Meanwhile, these are the results of the other games today in the NBA. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez, and I am 1 with 25.
In New York, Iglesia Ni Cristo musicians from all over the world gathered there to perform as part of the oratorio. Take a look.
To play a wrong note is insignificant. To play without passion is inexcusable.
Music should strike
fire from the heart of man and bring tears from the eyes of woman.
These are just a few quotes from German composer Ludwig van Beethoven, known to be the strongest musical figure in the transitional period between the classical and romantic eras.
Beethoven happens to be one of the inspirations of Filipino composer Rod Ramos. Tonight's conductor for the Iglesia ni Cristo produced oratorio concert entitled Ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa mga huling araw, or The Church of Christ in These Last Days.
And Felix Y. Manalo, the messenger of God in these last days. Conductor Rod Ramos will be leading the Iglesia ni Cristo Symphony Orchestra, the Iglesia ni Cristo Symphonic Choir, and Rondalla UK.
Tonight's musicians and soloists have come from across the United States and around the globe for the U.S. premiere of the oratorio performance.
The doors of David Geffen Hall opened to an eager audience.
And to say that expectations were great is an understatement.
I'm expecting a great program. I think it's amazing that people from all over the world involved in the church are going to be here in New York City. And I think it brings everybody together.
I'm really excited. I know it's going to be a very uplifting and inspirational oratorio. Oratorios by nature are very inspirational, and especially when it deals with the Iglesia ni Cristo, it's really going to be exciting.
The performance received a full house standing ovation.
From the first downbeat to the conductor's final bow, every note contributed to a perfect night.
My expectations have been exceeded. Two of them, one after the other, perform in this manner. Just majestic, just wonderful. You have to have the marvelous singers. You have to have the great composer doing the majestic compositions. You have to have the great musicians playing together, producing the song according to those compositions. When things come together, then there must be the greater of the great conductors doing it.
Let us end this lovely evening with a quote not from Beethoven, but this time from composer and conductor of tonight's oratorio concert, Brother Rod Ramos.
Conductor Ramos said, and I quote, "In the end, whatever it is being presented, and wherever it may be, it still has to be as perfect and as powerful if it is for God." Reporting from the INC Oratorio Concert here in New York, I'm Rod De La Paz.
And I am Jennifer Collington. Thank you for joining us. We are
One with 25.
Thanks, guys, and that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25. Good night.